Kia ora, te mangai o te whare. Thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to this third reading of the Health Protection Amendment Bill. During the passage of this piece of legislation, I had the fortune of sitting on the Health Select Committee, and I'd like to say that this piece of legislation was a bill of two halves, essentially. The first half, there was 100% support for, and that support was for a focus on infectious diseases. And I too want to reiterate that the history of this bill originated from the Honourable Pete Hodgson when the Public Health Bill was submitted to this House 8 years ago. So we all 100% agree with part one of the bill, and I really just want to focus on increased notifiable diseases within the STI space. So sexually transmitted infections are incredibly valid in terms of a topic of focus because in addition to AIDS, HIV, I really want to talk about gonorrhea and syphilis, because in 2014 the gonorrhea rate in New Zealand was 70 per 100,000. But the implications in areas like Tairawhiti for Māori and Pacific youth, where actually the rate is 4 times that of the national average, now provides us with information so that we can start addressing and managing some of these sexually transmitted infections. And for me, that is the value of this piece of legislation, is that it's going to now be proactive. It's going to involve a public health perspective, not treating these infections as individual infections that have actually no ongoing interest or ramification in our community, but that it will now lead to a better targeted approach and support, because what we do know is that people who suffer from STIs end up with infertility issues, chronic pain, there's issues with neonatal morbidity, and there is a relationship with certain types of cancers. So anything that we can do to be proactive, to protect our community, and within that context also ensure that individuals' information isn't, there aren't any privacy issues, we support 100%, and that was the general consensus of the Select Committee. In terms of part two, I think there was an emerging consensus from the opposition that we don't support part two of the bill. And part two of the bill prohibits the commercial provision of artificial UV light tanning services to under 18-year-olds. And I just want to quote from Minister Coleman from his contribution to this third reading, and he said, "A complete ban on the provision of artificial UV tanning services would prevent access to tanning services by adults who are well informed and choose to take on that risk." And he also made the point of saying that if you're over 18, then basically you're capable of making that decision. And our contention has been that actually young people aren't in a position to make that decision, and it's more relevant to those who are under 35 or under 30 based on the international research. So we would say that when we know a product is causing so much harm, then actually we have a responsibility as a government to protect all of our citizens. And that information came from the International Agency for Research on Cancer, that said that artificial UV tanning services increase the risk of melanoma to those under 30 by 75%. And the relevance to us here in New Zealand, well, in 2012, 2,324 New Zealand citizens were registered with melanoma, and in that particular year we had 354 deaths. I want to highlight one of the submissions that we received by a dermatologist, Louise Reich from Palmerston North, who led the charge at Palmerston North City Council because the mid-central DHB region has a melanoma rate of 51.55 per 100,000. And it was her contention that actually of those people diagnosed with melanoma between the ages of 18 and 29, 75% of those people had used artificial UV tanning services. So that was her contention. And she was supported in her submission and that of the Palmerston North City Council by Jessie and to Tony, who started using tanning machines as a 16-year-old, and she was diagnosed with melanoma, moved to Brisbane, and basically called for a complete ban on these UV tanning machines based on her own experience. I want to highlight that the first country in the world to ban UV tanning machines was actually Brazil in 2009, and Australia followed them in 2014. But 2014 was an interesting year, Mr. Speaker, because on the 1st of July 2014, Auckland Council actually implemented a bylaw that banned under 18-year-olds from using tanning machines. And for them, it was a focus on explaining the risks with operators and also ensuring that they displayed warning notices in their clinics so that people were informed and could make informed decisions about whether or not they use their machines. Now, the relevance to this debate is that 30% of operators in New Zealand actually reside in Auckland, and over 50% of the tanning machines are in Auckland. So in fact, this piece of legislation is only relevant to the other 50% of tanning machines that aren't used in the Auckland area. But so, you know, when you look at the options that this Parliament had, rather than this Parliament follow Brazil and Australia, they're actually following Auckland City Council. Doesn't quite make sense to me. I would have thought that as a responsible government, we would have followed what other countries have done based on evidence, not followed what a local body entity has done. No disrespect to Auckland City Council. In March 2016, Mr. Speaker, research from QIMR, the Berghofer Medical Research Institute in Brisbane, published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology that New Zealand had overtaken Australia and become the most melanoma-prone country in the world. So 6 countries were analysed, and their rates of melanoma between 1982 and 2001. And in 1982, the melanoma rate in New Zealand was 26 per 100,000. Today, it's over 50 per 100,000. And so those countries that were analysed were Australia, the UK, the US, Norway, Sweden, and New Zealand. And commenting on that piece of research, Associate Professor Tony Reeder from the Department of Preventative and Social Medicine at the University of Otago has said, and I quote, "New Zealand has lacked high-level commitment and adequate investment in skin cancer prevention." And dermatologist Ben Talon commented that we need to wake up. It's time that New Zealand and this government woke up. So in 2002, melanoma was identified as a priority in the New Zealand Cancer Control Strategy. So in summary, we don't support Part 2 of this piece of legislation. This bill is actually a sad indictment, not only of the Minister, but unfortunately of the Ministry, because the Ministry's mandate, or their function, is to improve, promote and protect the public health of New Zealanders. And so I'm incredibly disappointed that the Ministry didn't adequately advise the Minister, or if they did, that the Minister didn't listen to his Ministry and ensure that this Health Protection Amendment bill actually does protect New Zealanders. And that's what's incredibly disheartening about the title of this piece of legislation, the Health Protection Amendment Bill. It's actually a disingenuous title because we have missed the opportunity to protect the health and well-being of our fellow New Zealanders. So Labor is supporting this bill, but we categorically, with the Greens and New Zealand First, do not support Part 2. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, this debate has concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party votes called for. I'll ask the clerk to conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
32 votes in favour.
Green Party.
14 in favour.
New Zealand First.
12 votes abstain.
Māori Party.
2 in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Members, the ayes are 109, the abstentions are 12. The motion is agreed to.
Health Protection Amendment Bill, third reading.
Call on Government